Ava stayed late at work that night, even after the weather alerts warned everyone to go home. She thought she could finish her tasks before the storm hit, but when she stepped outside, her car wouldn't start, and the only other person left in the entire building was the CEO she had barely spoken to. She didn't know it yet, but the next 13 days would change her life forever. The storm warnings had been flashing on Ava's phone since 5:12 p.m. Severe winter storm approaching, heavy rainfall, high winds, visibility low, avoid travel. She swiped them away again and again, as if ignoring them would change anything. She had deadlines, reports, an overdue file, a boss who expected perfection. She wasn't the kind of woman who walked away from unfinished work, even when everyone else already had. When she finally lifted her head from her screen, she was the only light left glowing in the entire west wing of Blackthorn Industries. The building hummed softly around her, empty halls echoing like a cathedral. No footsteps, no murmurs, no office chatter, just her and the storm. She pushed back from her chair and stretched, feeling the ache in her shoulders. "Great job, Ava," she muttered to herself. "You've officially outworked the entire building." Outside, through the floor-to-ceiling glass, the sky had turned thick and charcoal dark. Fat drops of rain slapped against the windows, blurring the skyline and swallowing the streetlights below. She finally grabbed her bag and headed toward the elevator, trying not to think about how stupid it had been to ignore the warnings. When the elevator doors opened with a soft chime, a cold punch of air swept in from the lobby. The security desk was empty. Even the guards had left early. Of course they did. She hugged her coat tighter and stepped outside. The storm hit her instantly. The wind sliced sideways, pushing sheets of icy rain across the nearly empty parking lot. Headlights flashed in streaks as the last few cars sped off. The pavement shone in broken reflections, puddles rippling under every raindrop. Only 2 cars remained. Hers, a small silver sedan, and a sleek, glossy black Mercedes parked a few spaces away. It looked expensive, intimidating, out of place in the employee lot. Ava didn't linger. She rushed to her car, soaking within seconds, hair plastered to her cheeks. She fumbled with her keys and jumped inside, shivering as rain hammered the roof. She tried the ignition. Click. She tried again. Click, click, click. No, no, no. She hit the steering wheel lightly. Not today. The engine didn't turn. It didn't even try. She leaned forward, forehead touching the wheel, rain dripping from her coat onto the seat. For a moment, the storm outside seemed quieter than the chaos suddenly spinning inside her chest. There was no Uber, not in this weather. No trains, everything was suspended. No one left at the office. She took a shaky breath, popped the hood, and ran out into the downpour again. Her clothes were sticking to her skin, her hands trembling from the cold as she lifted the hood and stared helplessly into the mess of metal and wires. She wasn't a mechanic. She wasn't even close. Still, she tried. She fiddled with the battery cables. She checked the oil cap. She pressed the ignition fuse. Rain poured down her sleeves, dripping from her hair, blurring her vision. Come on, please just start. She was shivering hard now, teeth chattering, fingers numb. She had no idea how long she'd been out in the storm before she felt it. A presence behind her. Not close, but unmistakable. She whirled around, rainwater slashing across her cheeks. A tall figure stood a few feet away, holding a black umbrella against the storm. Dark hair damp at the edges, a tailored charcoal suit, sharp jawline, a presence that seemed almost unreal against the fury of the sky behind him. Nathaniel Blackthorn, the CEO. 26, brilliant, quiet, impossible to read. The youngest head of a major company in the city, inheriting it far too early after the loss of his father. a man she'd only seen from a distance, in board meetings, on magazine covers, passing through the office with the kind of focus that made people straighten in their seats. Seeing him here, in this storm, at this hour, felt impossible. He looked at her, eyes narrowing slightly with concern. "You're freezing," he said, voice low but carried by the storm. "Your car isn't starting?" Ava blinked, torn between embarrassment, shock, and disbelief. I thought everyone left. I didn't realize you were still here." "I had a meeting run late. You shouldn't be out in this weather." Her breath hitched, whether from fear, cold, or the intensity of his eyes, she didn't know. "I tried fixing it, but I think the battery or starter's gone, and the storm is pretty bad." That's one word for it. His gaze flicked from her soaked clothes to the open car hood. "You can't drive home in this." "I don't have another option." He exhaled, the kind of slow breath that hinted at a decision forming. "Yes, you do. Come with me." Ava froze. I can't just—" "You can," he interrupted gently, "and you should. It's dangerous out here. Let me take you somewhere safe." Her breath hitched, whether from fear, cold, or the intensity of his eyes, she didn't know. She swallowed hard, heart pounding. She barely knew him. He was her CEO. This was insane. Yet the warmth in his voice wasn't commanding or arrogant. It was concerned, genuine, and she was freezing. She nodded slowly. "Okay." His expression softened just slightly, relief flickering through his eyes, so subtle she wondered if she had imagined it. He guided her toward the black Mercedes, opening the door for her. She stepped inside, instantly enveloped in warmth that made her whole body sigh in relief. When he entered the driver's side and shook water from his hair, the small space felt suddenly intimate, too small, too warm, too dangerous. He glanced at her as he started the engine. "I've noticed you working late every night this week." Her cheeks burned. "You noticed?" He kept his eyes on the road, voice steady. "Hard not to notice the most dedicated person in the building." Her heart stuttered. The rain pounded the roof, thunder rolled in the distance, the city blurred past in streaks of silver. They drove in silence for a moment before he said quietly, "My home is close. You can stay until the storm settles." "You're sure I'm not causing trouble?" Nathaniel shot her a brief sidelong glance, and the corner of his mouth lifted, almost like a smile that he rarely let anyone see. "You're not trouble, Ava." Something warm flickered in her chest. When they reached his house, a modern, warm-lit home tucked behind tall evergreens, she felt her breath catch. Not because it was huge or expensive, though it was, but because it felt lived in, safe, quiet. He unlocked the door and stepped aside for her. "A guest room's down the hall," he said softly. "You can warm up, shower, get dry clothes. Take your time." She paused in the doorway, cold water dripping from her sleeves onto the hardwood floor. "Thank you," she whispered. "Really." His gaze lingered on her for a heartbeat, longer than necessary. "You're welcome." And then she stepped inside, unaware that this night, this storm, was the beginning of something neither of them had been prepared for, something that would unfold slowly, beautifully, over the next 13 days, something that would change them both forever. Ava woke to the soft scent of cedar and something warm, like cinnamon coffee drifting through an unfamiliar hallway. It took a second for her foggy mind to register why she wasn't in her own apartment. Last night. The storm. Her car. Nathaniel's offer. His house. His voice in the car. Steady, calm, almost comforting. She sat up slowly, wrapped in a blanket so soft she felt like she was floating. The guest room was minimalist, warm, and impossibly clean. A gray sweater and black joggers lay neatly at the foot of the bed, folded with precision. A small note sat beside them. These should fit. N. Her stomach fluttered. She quietly slipped into the clothes, then tiptoed down the hallway, trying not to disturb anything. She followed the faint hum of a kettle to the kitchen. Nathaniel stood at the counter, sleeves rolled up, hair damp from a shower. He looked much younger without the weight of a suit and a billion-dollar company on his shoulders. Softer, almost boyish. Then he looked at her, and the boy vanished. The CEO returned, refined and unreadable, but with the slightest warmth beneath his expression. "You're awake," he said. "Yeah," she murmured. "Sorry, I didn't mean to." "It's fine." He gestured to the cup he'd already placed on the counter. "You drink coffee, right? Medium roast, 2 spoons, no cream." Ava froze. How did you know?" His eyes held hers for a fraction longer than expected. "I observe people," he said simply. She felt that in her stomach. He slid her the coffee, then poured his own. "The storm's still heavy, but they're expecting it to weaken late afternoon. I'll drive you home once the roads are clear." Her immediate instinct was to protest, to insist she didn't want to inconvenience him. But the warmth of the kitchen, the gentleness in his voice, the softness she wasn't used to seeing in him, she nodded instead. "Thank you for everything." He glanced at her sweater, his sweater, fitting her a little too well. Something flickered in his eyes. It was no trouble. But Ava wasn't blind. She saw it. That flicker wasn't trouble. It was interest. The quiet kind. The dangerous kind. The kind that didn't show itself unless it really mattered. The next day at the office felt surreal. People were buzzing about budgets, meetings, schedules, the usual chaos of Blackthorn Industries, but Ava felt strangely detached from it all. Everything around her felt louder, brighter, more intrusive after the calm of Nathaniel's home. Whenever she walked through the halls, she felt like she carried a secret no one could ever guess. Until he appeared. Nathaniel stepped out of an executive meeting flanked by 2 board members. His suit was sharp, his expression unreadable, his presence commanding. Then his eyes found hers. Only for a second, only for a breath, but Ava felt it. A pause, a shift, a silent acknowledgement of something no one else saw. She looked away quickly, pretending to focus on the stack of papers in her hands. Because how could she explain it? He was her CEO. She was one employee out of hundreds. Yet somehow one stormy night had threaded their worlds together in ways neither of them fully understood yet. By the end of day 4, the weather finally cleared, but the air was still biting cold. Ava stayed late again, old habits dying hard, but this time the office lights weren't completely dark when she packed her things. As she stepped into the hallway, she saw him. Nathaniel, standing near the conference room window, phone pressed to his ear. His expression was sharp at first, frustrated, tired, but when his eyes lifted and met hers, something softened. He ended the call quickly. "You're still here," he said. She lifted her folder. "I had reports to finish." He nodded, stepping closer. The proximity made her pulse flutter unexpectedly. "You shouldn't work so late every night," she countered. He paused, and she realized she had caught him off guard for the first time. "Fair point," he said, a faint smile tugging at the corner of his mouth. Then, shockingly, he said, "Walk with me?" She blinked. "Where?" "Just down the hall." It sounded simple, nothing meaningful, but the hallway felt different with him beside her, quieter, heavier, charged with something she didn't dare name. They stopped near the large window overlooking the city. Lights sparkled below, reflecting off the glass. Nathaniel's voice dropped low. "Do you ever feel like you're trying to keep up with a life that wasn't meant for you?" Ava turned toward him. His jaw was tight, his eyes distant, the same haunted look she'd glimpsed during the storm. "I know the feeling," she said softly, "trying your best, giving everything, but somehow still feeling behind." He looked at her then, really looked, as if something in her words hit deeper than she realized. "I didn't think anyone else understood that," he murmured. A small silence wrapped around them, warm and intimate. Too intimate. She stepped back slightly. I should get going. He nodded, the moment breaking gently, like glass set down instead of dropped. But as she walked away, she felt his eyes following her. Not in an inappropriate way, in a curious way, a drawn-in, reluctant, slowly unfolding way. On day 5, Ava escaped to the small break room to breathe after a stressful morning. She plugged in her earbuds, scrolling through her playlists in desperate need of a reset. But before she could choose a song, a quiet voice drifted from behind her. "You listen to August Rivers?" She jumped. Nathaniel was standing in the doorway. Her phone screen showed the album cover. "Oh, yeah, he's my favorite artist." Nathaniel's eyebrows lifted. "You're kidding. You like him too?" He hesitated. "He got me through a lot after my father passed." Ava's heart clenched softly. She took a step toward him. "I'm sorry. I didn't know." "You couldn't have," he said gently. Their eyes held for a moment, not with sympathy, but recognition, like two people who had unknowingly carried the same wound for too long. Then he said something that made her stomach flip. "I didn't think you and I would have anything in common." "What changed?" she asked softly. "You," he said. "You surprised me." Her breath caught. He wasn't flirting. He wasn't playing. He was just honest. Painfully, disarmingly honest. Ava felt something shift, small, delicate, dangerous. Something neither of them would forget. Something that would make the coming days even more intense. By day 6, something unspoken had settled between Ava and Nathaniel. A quiet awareness neither of them addressed, but neither could ignore. Ava felt it in the way he looked at her during meetings, not intensely, not possessively, but attentively, as if she were the one steady point in a world that kept shifting beneath his feet. Nathaniel felt it too, in the way he found himself scanning the office for her without meaning to, in the calm that washed over him when she appeared, in the way her presence softened the noise inside his head. But the moment that cracked his walls happened that afternoon. She was in the hallway, trying to balance a stack of reports when one slipped, papers scattered across the marble floor like snowflakes. Before she could bend, he was already there, kneeling beside her, gathering pages with careful hands. "You don't have to," she began. "I want to," he said softly. The way he said "want" made her chest tighten. Their hands brushed once, lightly, accidentally, but both felt it. A spark, a static shock, a tiny, dangerous heartbeat of something growing. Ava looked up, startled by the warmth in his eyes, thinly veiled but unmistakable. He looked away first, and that told her more than any words ever could.
The next day, chaos erupted. A major contract, a partnership worth millions, was falling apart. An error in the projection models had thrown the entire deal into jeopardy. The finance team panicked, the legal team scrambled, directors were shouting. Nathaniel was composed, but she could see the tension in his jaw, the exhaustion beneath his eyes. Ava watched from the conference room doorway as he spoke to the board, voice calm but strained. "We need a revised financial model," he said. "A corrected version, clean and detailed, before tomorrow morning." "We don't have time," one of the directors snapped. "It's impossible." Nathaniel's eyes hardened. "Then we make time." Ava didn't know what possessed her, but she stepped forward. "I can do it." Silence fell. All eyes turned to her. Nathaniel's brows lifted, surprise flickering through his expression. "You've only been assisting with the models for a month." "I've corrected 3 errors this week alone," she said, steady, "and I built half the base data myself. If anyone can fix the projection, I can." A beat of silence. Then Nathaniel spoke, softly but with absolute conviction. "She's right." The board looked scandalized, but he didn't care. "Ava," he said, meeting her eyes, "let's fix this." Her heart pounded, not because of the pressure, but because of his trust. He could have chosen anyone in the company, yet he chose her. The two of them worked long into the night, the office empty again except for the glow of screens and the distant hum of cleaning crews. Ava typed furiously, recalculating figures and correcting formulas. Nathaniel watched her work with a quiet awe he didn't bother hiding. "You're incredible," he said softly. She didn't look up. "I'm just doing my job." "No," he said, stepping closer. "You're doing far more than that." When she finally leaned back, exhausted, Nathaniel came around behind her and braced one hand on the desk. His other hand rested lightly on the back of her chair. Close. Too close. But she didn't move. He looked at the screen, then at her. "This would have taken the team 3 days. You did it in 4 hours." Her pulse fluttered. He wasn't praising her like a boss. He was speaking like a man seeing something beautiful. "You're tired," he added softly. "Let me drive you home." But no arguments. This time, she didn't protest.
The car was quiet but alive with tension. The soft kind, the slow kind, the almost electric kind. Halfway through the drive, he spoke. "You surprised me again today." Ava smiled faintly. "In a good way?" "In the only way that matters." She glanced at him. His eyes were on the road, but something in his expression felt vulnerable. "I don't let people in easily," he said. "I know that about myself." "I noticed," she whispered. His lips twitched. "I figured." "But," she hesitated, "you're different around me, sometimes." The silence stretched between them, warm, charged. Finally, he said the truth. "I don't feel alone when you're near." Ava's breath caught. "It's strange," he continued softly. "I don't connect with people easily. But you—" He shook his head, searching for words. "You calm things." Her heart felt too big for her chest. "Nathaniel." He glanced at her, then, just for a moment, and the look in his eyes made her knees weak even though she was sitting down. Raw, open, too honest. He looked away before anything more could spill out, but the damage was done. They were no longer drifting around each other. They were orbiting. Day 9 passed quietly, too quietly. Both avoided prolonged eye contact at work, the intensity of the previous night still hanging between them like a whispered secret. But fate didn't care about their attempts at distance. That evening she stayed late again, not because she needed to, but because she didn't want to go home to an empty apartment. Nathaniel found her in the break room, staring at a vending machine like it had personally betrayed her. He leaned against the doorway. "You know, you don't need to stay late just because I do." She turned, cheeks warming. "I'm not—" He raised a brow. "Okay, maybe a little." A ghost of a smile touched his lips. "I figured." "Come with me." "To where?" "Just upstairs." He led her to the rooftop terrace, a hidden slice of quiet he had never shown anyone, not a single employee. The city lights stretched endlessly below them. "It's beautiful," she whispered. "I only come up here when I can't breathe," he admitted softly, "when the world feels too loud." She turned to him. "Does it still feel loud now?" He looked at her, really looked, and shook his head slowly. "No, not with you." Ava's heart thudded painfully. She stepped closer, not intentionally, just drawn. He didn't move back. The rooftop wind tangled her hair, and he reached up instinctively as if to brush it aside, but stopped just short of touching her. His voice was barely above a whisper. "You make things quieter, Ava, softer. I don't understand it." "You don't have to."
Sometimes things just feel right. His breath caught. For a moment, just a moment, it felt like the world narrowed to the space between them. He lowered his hand. "Let's go back inside," he said gently, "before I say something I can't take back." But the way he said it told her he already had.
At some point, neither of them could pretend their connection was coincidence. Not accidental, not imaginary, not one-sided. When he passed her in the hall, his shoulder brushed hers, light, barely there, but deliberate. When she handed him a report, their hands touched too long to be an accident. When he spoke to her, his voice softened in ways no one else ever heard. When she looked at him, he looked back like she was the only person in the room. The shift had happened. Slowly, quietly, inevitably. And both of them felt it. The only question now was what they would do with it. Ava woke before her alarm, not because of stress, not because of work, but because something in her chest felt alive. The last 10 days had been unreal. Morning coffees shared, evening car rides with playlists they built together, inside jokes that formed without effort, soft smiles across rooms that felt like conversations by themselves. And despite all of this, not a single moment had crossed into anything unprofessional. Not one line had been stepped over, not one boundary broken. But the air between them had changed. Everyone in the office noticed before either of them admitted it. The way Nathaniel lingered near the marketing floor. The way Ava's voice softened whenever he appeared beside her. The way they both looked away too fast when someone caught them glancing. So when Ava walked into the office that morning and found a small white box on her desk, she knew exactly who put it there before she touched it. A handwritten note rested on top. "Don't argue. N." Her chest tightened, painfully, beautifully. She opened the box. Inside was a pair of gloves, thick, warm, soft brown leather with a fleece lining, the kind made for someone who kept forgetting theirs in the rush of life. Ava's throat burned. He remembered. He'd noticed. He cared. She swallowed hard and closed the box gently. When she turned around, Nathaniel was standing across the room pretending to read reports. He looked up slowly. Their eyes locked. He didn't smile. She didn't smile. But something passed between them, a soft, quiet warmth that could melt entire winters. Ava mouthed silently, "Thank you." Nathaniel responded with the smallest nod, like if he said anything aloud, he'd reveal too much. Later that evening, the storm had cleared. The roads were safe. Yet Nathaniel still walked her to her car, hands in his pockets, shoulders slightly tense, as if preparing for something. When they reached her car door, he stopped. "Ava," he said softly. His voice sounded like he'd rehearsed her name. "Yes?" she whispered. He hesitated, and that hesitation was everything. He looked like a man standing on the edge of a truth he wasn't sure he had the right to speak. "I'm glad you stayed that night," he finally said. "I don't think I've said that properly." Ava's breath caught. Soft, warm, hopeful. "I'm glad too," she replied. Silence. Their breath in the cold air mingled between them. Their shoulders were inches apart, too close for colleagues, too far for what they were becoming. Then, "Ava," he said again, voice lower. "There's something But a loud honk from a passing truck snapped the moment in half. Nathaniel stepped back first. Ava swallowed hard. Neither knew where to put their hands or their eyes. He cleared his throat. "Drive safe." "You too." She entered her car, but he didn't leave until she drove out of the lot. And she knew because when she looked in her mirror, He was still standing there, watching her taillights disappear. Ava's pulse raced. "Something important?" she repeated. Yes, he met her eyes. Careful, honest, a little scared. "And I want you to hear it without the office around us." Before she could ask more, he added, "I'll pick you up at 6. A promise, a warning, a beginning." Ava nodded slowly. "Okay," she whispered. Nathaniel opened the door for her, gentle, respectful, but she could feel his gaze on the side of her face as she walked past him. When she reached the hallway, she exhaled shakily. Tomorrow, Christmas Eve, dinner, something important. Her chest felt too full, too hopeful, too alive. And Nathaniel, still inside the room, leaned against the table with a quiet, exhaled confession to the empty air. "I hope I don't lose her." Ava had never taken so long to pick out an outfit in her entire life. Not even for job interviews. Not for graduations. Not for birthdays. But tonight wasn't just a dinner. It wasn't just Christmas Eve. It was the talk. The one Nathaniel said he wanted to have away from the office. The one his eyes had been promising for days. She tried on a cream sweater. Too casual. Then a burgundy dress. Too bold. Then a soft navy top with simple black pants. Safe. Warm. Respectful. Beautiful without trying too hard. She settled on that. Just as she finished brushing her hair, headlights appeared outside her apartment window, the soft glow of a familiar black Mercedes. Her heart thudded. He was here. Ava grabbed her coat, inhaled once, and headed downstairs. Nathaniel stood outside his car, waiting. Not sitting, not on his phone, waiting for her, in the cold. He turned as soon as he heard her footsteps, and Ava felt something change in the air. Nathaniel wasn't in his usual suit. He wore a dark sweater, fitted and warm, with a charcoal coat that made him look younger and softer, but somehow even more breathtaking. For a moment, neither of them spoke. They just looked. Then, "You look beautiful," he said, voice low and unsteady. Ava's cheeks warmed. "Thank you." He opened the passenger door for her, but he didn't let go immediately. His hand brushed hers, intentionally or not, and the tiny touch sent a warm current straight up her arm. Once she sat, he closed the door gently and walked around to his side. The car smelled faintly of pine and something warm she'd grown used to. Him. Nathaniel started driving slowly, the city wrapped in soft Christmas lights, snow dusting the sidewalks. They didn't speak for the first few minutes, not out of awkwardness, but because something about the silence felt sacred, suspended. Finally, "Ava," he said quietly, eyes still on the road, "there's something I need to say before we get to dinner." Her breath caught. Here it comes. She turned slightly toward him. "I'm listening." Nathaniel swallowed. His fingers tightened on the steering wheel. "These last 13 days... He paused, searching for words. "I've felt something I didn't expect to feel. Not now. Not this soon. Not like this." Ava's chest tightened. "Nathaniel!" "Let me finish?" A gentle request, one that made her nod immediately. He exhaled. "I've been worried about crossing a line. Worried you would feel pressured. Worried that my position, the company, everything, might make this wrong." She shook her head softly. "It doesn't feel wrong." "I know," he said quietly. "That's exactly why I'm terrified." Ava blinked. Terrified? Nathaniel finally looked at her, and there it was, everything he'd been holding back. "Ava, I care about you," he said, "more than I should, more than I meant to, and I don't know how to pretend I don't anymore." A breath escaped her lips, soft, shaking. Her heartbeat felt like it was everywhere. Nathaniel continued, voice barely above a whisper. I don't want you to think for 1 second that this is about the company or some infatuation. It's you. His voice softened further. It's always been you. Ava felt her eyes sting. Nathaniel, she whispered. He stopped the car at a red light and fully turned to her. I need to know if I'm the only one feeling this. Her voice nearly broke. You're not. Nathaniel inhaled sharply, as if the words had hit something deep, something fragile. The light turned green, but he didn't move for a second. He just stared at her, eyes warm and full. Then he drove again, quieter this time, gentle. As they approached the edge of the city, Ava realized they weren't heading toward a restaurant. Instead, snow-covered trees led a narrow private road, leading to a modern glass house glowing with soft golden lights. Ava turned to him with surprise. I thought we were going out to dinner. We are, he said softly. Inside. She blinked. This is your home? One of them, he admitted, but this one feels more like me.
Inside the house, it was breathtaking. Warm lights, soft acoustic music playing, a fireplace crackling, a table set for two with white candles and evergreen branches. Ava stood still, stunned. Nathaniel, you planned all this? He slipped his hands into his pockets, a little shy now. I didn't want our first real conversation to happen in a crowded restaurant. Her heart scattered. First real conversation. He was counting tonight as a beginning. He walked toward the kitchen counter, brushed his hand along a wooden board, and lifted a tray. Dinner first, he said gently. Then we talk about what happens next. Ava stepped closer. Nathaniel, I already know what I want to happen next. He slowly set the tray down. And what's that? He asked, voice barely steady. She took one more step toward him. That we stop pretending. Nathaniel's breath hitched. For a moment, he looked like he was deciding whether to bridge the last few inches between them. Instead, he reached up gently, so gently, and brushed a piece of hair behind her ear. Her skin prickled with warmth. Ava. He whispered her name like it meant something he couldn't bear to say aloud yet. I don't want to rush this. You're not, she whispered back. I've felt this since the storm. His eyes softened even more. I have too.
They stood there, inches apart, their breaths mingling, the world quiet around them. Then, I want to see you tomorrow, Nathaniel said softly. Ava blinked. Tomorrow? Christmas? He nodded. Yes, at my second residence. It's about an hour outside the city, on a bigger property. My grandmother lives there. She's the only family I have left. Her lips parted in surprise. You want me to meet her? If you want to, he said. His voice was gentle, hopeful, almost vulnerable. She's having a small Christmas gathering. She keeps asking who I'm spending the holiday with. A faint, shy smile tugged at his lips. I'd like to bring you. Ava's eyes softened. Nathaniel, she whispered, I'd love to go. Something in him eased, visibly, beautifully, like he'd been holding his breath since the moment he dropped that invitation. He held out her hand. Nathaniel, he said softly, I'd really like to take this one step at a time, but I don't want to hide how I feel about you. She placed her hand into his, warm, steady, fitting perfectly. I don't want to hide either. Nathaniel exhaled, his thumb brushing the side of her hand, a gesture gentle enough to melt the entire winter around them. Then, dinner, he said softly, his eyes never leaving hers, and tomorrow, Christmas with my family. Ava smiled, bright, warm, real. Tomorrow, she whispered, I'll be there. And as he guided her toward the table, their fingers intertwined, easy, natural, like they'd been waiting 13 days just to do this. Ava felt something she had never felt before. Not hope, not excitement, but something deeper. Home. If you enjoyed this story, if it made your heart race, or your breath catch, or your mind wander just a little, then don't forget to like this video. And hit subscribe so you never miss the next twist, the next heartbreak, the next moment that stays with you. More stories, more mystery, more emotion coming soon.